You think you're in control of your thoughts? You're not. Every morning you wake up and the same loop starts playing. The same worries, the same doubts, the same mental conversation you've been having with yourself for years. And here's what nobody tells you. That conversation is not random. It's not just how you are. It's a pattern. A deeply carved neural pathway that fires automatically, without your permission, shaping every decision you make before you even realize you're making one. Your brain has been trained, not by you, by repetition, by environment, by the emotional weight of 1,000 small moments you didn't even notice were teaching you how to think. And the worst part? You think those thoughts are you. You think that voice in your head, the one that hesitates, that second guesses, that keeps you safe and small. You think that's your personality, your nature, just who you are. It's not. It's a habit. And like any habit, it can be rewritten. But not the way you think. Not through affirmations or motivation or trying harder. Those don't touch the structure. They're surface level. They fade. What rewires your brain is something most people will never do because it requires you to stop every single day and deliberately confront the way you think. Not what you think about, the way you think, the pattern itself. And when you start doing that, when you catch your mind mid-loop and interrupt it, not with force but with awareness, you don't just change your thoughts, you change the physical structure of your brain. You weaken old pathways. You build new ones. You become someone different, not because you wanted it, because you built it. One repetition at a time. There's an enemy inside your mind. It's not you, but it speaks in your voice. It uses your memories. It knows every fear you've ever felt and every failure you've ever experienced, and it weaponizes them against you every single day. This enemy is your conditioning. It's the invisible belief system that was built inside you before you were old enough to question it, before you knew you could question it. You were raised in a world that taught you to seek approval, to avoid mistakes, to stay safe, to not stand out too much, but also to not fall behind, to work hard, but not too hard that you burn out, to dream big, but not so big that you look foolish when you fail. Mixed messages, contradictory rules, all absorbed quietly, without resistance, because you were young and your brain was wired to learn by imitation. And now, years later, you're walking around with an operating system you didn't design. You think it's protecting you. And in some ways it is. It keeps you from taking risks that might hurt. It keeps you inside the bounds of what's acceptable, what's expected, what's known. But it's also suffocating you. Because that same system that keeps you safe also keeps you stuck. It stops you from speaking up when you have something to say. It convinces you that you're not ready, not qualified, not good enough yet. It tells you to wait, to prepare more, to make sure everything's perfect before you move. And while you wait, life passes. You didn't choose to believe you weren't good enough. Someone suggested it. Maybe not with words, maybe with a look, a grade, a comparison, a dismissal, a silence when you needed encouragement. And your brain recorded it, not as an opinion, as a fact, because that's what young brains do. They don't filter, they absorb. And once something is absorbed deeply enough, it becomes automatic. It becomes the lens through which you see everything. So now, when you think about doing something bold, something new, something that requires you to be seen, your brain doesn't process it as opportunity. It processes it as threat. This is the enemy. Not laziness, not lack of talent, not bad luck. It's the belief system running silently in the background, making decisions for you, shaping your behavior, limiting your choices, all while pretending to be you. Let's talk about what it actually feels like to be trapped inside your own mind. You wake up, and for a few seconds, you feel fine. Maybe even good. There's potential in the air, a new day, a blank slate. Then the thoughts start. Not big dramatic thoughts, small ones, quiet ones. I should check my phone. I wonder what I missed. I need to respond to that message. I forgot to do that thing yesterday. Why do I always forget? I'm so disorganized. And just like that, within 60 seconds of waking, you're already behind, already judging yourself, already playing catch up in a race you didn't sign up for. You're not depressed. You're not broken. You're just tired. Tired of thinking the same thoughts. Tired of feeling the same way. Tired of knowing what you should do but not doing it. And the worst part is, you don't even know what's wrong. There's no clear problem. No emergency. No catastrophe. Just this vague, persistent sense that you're not living the life you're capable of. That there's a gap between who you are and who you could be, and you have no idea how to close it. This is the psychological trap. It's not that you lack discipline. It's that you're trying to change your behavior without changing the thoughts that create your behavior. You're trying to build a new life on top of an old operating system, and the old operating system keeps pulling you back, not because it's evil, because it's efficient. Your brain loves patterns. It loves automation. When you try to do something new, wake up earlier, work on a project, speak up in a meeting, your brain sees it as inefficient, as unnecessary, as a threat to the smooth, predictable routine it's been running for years. And it resists, not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, subtly, through doubt, through distraction, through rationalization. You don't need to do that right now. You can start tomorrow. You're too tired. It probably won't work anyway. And because these thoughts feel like your thoughts, you listen, you believe them. But you're not. You're just obeying the pattern. The same pattern that's kept you stuck. So you look for solutions. You watch videos about productivity, about discipline, about mindset, and everyone's telling you the same thing. You just need to try harder. Wake up earlier. Push through the resistance. Hustle, grind, and maybe you try it. Maybe you set your alarm for 5 a.m. and force yourself out of bed. Maybe you make a schedule and commit to following it. And it works. For a bit, you feel powerful, in control. Then life happens. You have a bad day, you miss one morning, then two. Then the whole routine falls apart and you're back where you started, except now you also feel like a failure. So you look for another solution. Maybe the problem isn't discipline, maybe it's motivation, maybe you just need to get inspired. So you write down your goals, you visualize your future, you watch motivational videos that make you feel like you can conquer the world. And for a few hours, maybe a few days, you feel it. That fire, that clarity, then the feeling fades. And you're left with the same thoughts, the same doubts, the same patterns you had before. The real problem is deeper. You're trying to build a new identity on top of an old belief system. And the old belief system keeps winning because it's been there longer. It's stronger. It's automatic. You can't out-discipline your subconscious. You can't out-motivate your conditioning. That's why the common advice fails. Not because it's bad, but because it's incomplete. It tells you to change your actions without showing you how to change the mind that controls those actions. Here's where everything shifts. There's a moment where you stop looking outside yourself for the answer and start looking inside. You realize that everything you've been chasing, the discipline, the motivation, the perfect routine, was never the real problem. The real problem was that you were trying to build a new life while still thinking like the old version of yourself. But here's the shift. The moment you understand that your thoughts are not facts, everything changes. Your thoughts are just patterns, electrical signals, neural pathways that fire based on repetition, not truth. When your brain says you're not good enough, it's not making a statement about reality. It's repeating a loop that was created by past experiences, past failures, past voices that told you to stay small. But just because the thought is loud doesn't mean it's true. And just because it feels real doesn't mean you have to obey it. This is the turning point. The moment you stop identifying with your thoughts and start observing them, you start to notice, oh, that's the fear thought, that's the doubt thought. And instead of believing it, instead of letting it stop you, you just notice it. You let it be there. You don't fight it, you don't feed it, you just watch it. And something strange happens. The thought loses power because thoughts only control you when you think they are you, when you fuse with them. But when you create space between you and the thought, when you observe it like a weather pattern passing through, it can't stop you anymore. This is what every great thinker throughout history has pointed to. The mind is a tool. It's not the master. You are. But most people never learn to use it. They let the mind run wild. They let it spiral. They let it convince them of things that aren't true. But you don't have to. You can take control. Not through force, through awareness. And if you've made it this far, pause for a second. Drop a comment and tell me, what's the one thought that keeps holding you back? The one loop you keep running that you know isn't serving you, because naming it is the first step. So let's talk about what this actually looks like. The system, the thing you do every single day that rewires your brain from the inside out. It starts the moment you wake up. Most people grab their phone, check messages, scroll, let the world flood their mind before they've even had a chance to check in with themselves. But if you want to rewire your brain, the first rule is this: control the first input. You don't check anything. You don't consume anything. You don't let anyone else's voice into your head until you've heard your own. You sit up, you breathe, and you ask yourself one question: what am I thinking right now? And you listen. You notice. You don't judge. You just observe. Maybe it's worry. Maybe it's a to-do list. Maybe it's replaying yesterday's conversation. Whatever it is, you name it. I'm thinking about work. I'm worrying about that meeting. I'm feeling anxious. That's step one. Just noticing, just naming. Because most people never do this. They let the thoughts run, they fuse with them, they become them. But when you notice the thought, when you name it, you create separation. You step outside the loop. You remind your brain, I am not this thought, I am the one observing it. And that small act, done daily, done first thing, starts to build a new neural pathway, a pathway of awareness, of control, of choice. Next, you redirect. You don't fight the thought. You just ask, is this thought useful? Is it helping me move forward, or is it keeping me stuck? And if it's not useful, you let it go. You shift your focus to something intentional. Maybe it's gratitude. Maybe it's a goal. Maybe it's just the simple fact that you're alive, awake, and capable of choosing how you think. You don't need an hour of meditation. You just need 60 seconds of deliberate thought. 60 seconds where you decide what your mind focuses on, instead of letting it run on autopilot. This is the foundation, the non-negotiable. Throughout the day, the real work begins. Your mind is going to loop. It's going to spiral. It's going to throw the same doubts, the same fears, the same distractions at you that it always has. And this is where most people lose. They let the loop run. But if you're building the habit, you catch it. You notice the moment your mind starts to loop. Maybe you're about to do something important, and the thought comes, this probably won't work. You're not ready. Old you would believe it, would hesitate. New you notices it, names it. That's the fear loop. That's the old pattern trying to keep me safe. And then you act anyway. Not because you feel confident, because you see the thought for what it is. Just a thought, not a fact, not a command, just a pattern. And every time you act despite the thought, you weaken the pathway. You teach your brain, this thought doesn't control me. That's the daily habit. It's not one big dramatic moment. It's 100 small moments where you choose awareness over automation. It's noticing when you're scrolling to avoid discomfort. Noticing when you're procrastinating because you're scared. And instead of judging yourself for it, you just notice. You name it. You redirect over and over and over again. Most people think change requires massive action. It doesn't. It requires repeated micro-decisions, small interruptions in the pattern, because your brain doesn't change through intensity. It changes through repetition. Every time you catch a thought and choose not to obey it, you build the new pathway. Every time you redirect your focus from fear to intention, you strengthen it. And over time, weeks, months, the new pathway becomes stronger than the old one. The awareness becomes automatic. You don't have to think about it anymore. You just do it. But let's be honest about what happens next. You start doing this, you commit, you feel good about it. Then, a few days in, the old thoughts get louder. The resistance gets stronger. This is where most people quit. They think, this isn't working. I still feel anxious. I still have the same doubts. But here's what's actually happening. The old identity is fighting back. Your brain has been running a certain program for years, and that program has become part of your identity. I'm not disciplined. I'm not the type of person who follows through. I'm just anxious. That's who I am. And when you start acting like someone different, your brain panics. Because identity is survival. Your brain wants consistency. It wants to know who you are so it can keep you safe. And when you start acting outside that identity, it sees it as a threat. So it fights. It throws everything at you. Doubt, fear, fatigue, distraction. You don't need to do this. This is too hard. You're trying to be someone you're not. But you're not failing. You're just in the transition, the space between the old identity and the new one. And this space is a war. The old identity kept you small. It kept you stuck. It kept you from taking risks, from speaking up, from trying things that might not work. And now you're trying to become someone different, someone who notices their thoughts instead of obeying them. And that version of you is a threat to the old version. So the old version fights. But here's the truth. The intensity of the resistance is proof that you're onto something real. You just have to outlast it. You have to keep showing up, keep noticing, keep redirecting, even when it feels pointless. Because every time you choose awareness over automation, you weaken the old identity. Every time you act like the person you're becoming instead of the person you were, you build the new one. And at some point, usually right when you're about to quit, the resistance breaks. The thoughts get quieter. The loops get shorter. The patterns lose their grip. And you start to notice something strange. You're thinking differently. Not because you're trying to, because you are different. So let's talk about who you become. First, you stop reacting to everything. Something happens. A thought arises. And instead of fusing with it, instead of letting it dictate your emotional state, you just notice it. Oh, that's frustration. That's the old loop trying to convince me this is a disaster. And because you see it, it doesn't control you. You can feel the emotion without becoming it. Second, you stop waiting for certainty. The old identity needed to know, needed guarantees before it would move. But the new identity understands. Certainty is an illusion. You're never going to know for sure. So you move anyway. Not recklessly, intentionally. You start the project even though you don't know if it'll work. You take the risk even though you might fail. Because you've trained yourself to separate thought from truth. Third, you stop outsourcing your validation. The old identity needed approval, needed external confirmation that you were good enough. But the new identity doesn't need that anymore. You've built an internal compass. You know what matters to you. You know what you're building. And when you act from that place, external validation becomes irrelevant. This is the new identity, not a different person, a clearer version of who you already are, someone who thinks consciously instead of automatically, someone who acts intentionally instead of reactively. And it all comes from one daily habit, noticing your thoughts and choosing not to obey them. So here's the final challenge. Who are you going to be tomorrow morning when you wake up? Are you going to grab your phone and let the world flood your mind? Or are you going to take 60 seconds to notice what you're thinking and choose where you focus? Are you going to let the old loops run automatically? Or are you going to catch them, name them, and act despite them? This isn't a question you answer once. It's a question you answer every single day. Most people will read this and do nothing. They'll nod along. They'll think, that's interesting. And then they'll go right back to the same patterns because change is uncomfortable. But you're not most people. If you were, you wouldn't still be here. The challenge is simple. Start tomorrow. Wake up, notice your thoughts, redirect your focus. Do it again the next day. And the next. Not forever, just for 30 days. And if you're serious about this, drop a comment right now and tell me, what time are you waking up tomorrow to start? Saying it publicly makes it real. It creates accountability. And if you can't commit to that, then be honest with yourself about it. Because the only thing worse than not changing is pretending you're going to change and then not doing it. So decide, right now, are you in or are you out? If you're in, prove it. Comment. Hit subscribe so you stay locked in. If you're out, that's okay too, but don't lie to yourself about it. But if you are ready, if you're tired of thinking the same thoughts, living the same loops, being the same person you were a year ago, then this is it. This is the moment. And all you have to do is choose. And then show up tomorrow and prove it. Are you in